Hello and welcome to Industrial Sage. I'm Danny Gonzalez and I'm joined today by Fritz Carlson, who is the president and CEO of Acme Manufacturing in Auburn Hills, Michigan. Fritz, thank you so much for joining me on Industrial Sage.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm excited to kind of, get into to learning more about your story and learning about another company that you had kind of worked with called Romi. But before we get into that, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you and for our audience to kind of get an understanding of who Acme is. Acme Manufacturing, what do you guys do?
Actually, we're a 111-year-old machine tool company that specializes in material removal solutions for grinding, polishing, buffing, and deburring. We are also a robotic integrator. We've been integrating robotic systems for about 35 years. And again, those are all based on material removal applications. So what's unique about Acme is that we are a machine tool builder, but we are also a robot integrator. You generally find one or the other, but not both.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sounds pretty interesting. That sounds like a very storied history, 111 years.
Yes.
Maybe if you could describe me kind of the kinds of customers that you work with.
We sell to over 20 different industries globally. So we have a very large customer base, which includes aviation, power generation, medical devices, specialty metals, heavy truck, agriculture, consumer products, musical, firearms, just to name a few.
Yeah, that's just a few. Sounds like you got your hands in a couple different areas. That's great.
We do, yes.
So, kind of transitioning a little bit with Romi, obviously there were some challenges, or maybe there was an opportunity that you saw there. What specifically was kind of going on at the time when you started, learning about Romi solutions?
We were looking to upgrade some of our machine tools that we use in our business, and I happened to meet the CEO of Romi in Japan at a FANUC conference a couple years ago, and we just kind of hit it off. And then I was down in Brazil for a show that we were doing, as well as Romi. Saw him again. They had the largest booth in the show. It's called Expo Mafi. And they had all their machine tools on display. So I started to look at them and said, you know what, maybe I should consider these guys. So we got competitive bids from, different companies, but it just seemed like, the Romi is a very well-built, very heavy, rigid machine. And, some machine tools you can buy today, after about 10 years, you can throw them out. You probably don't even want to rebuild them. Whereas I know with Romi, they have a program where after so many years, you want to do a trade-in. You trade in, you get a new one, they'll take the trade in and they will refurbish it and resell it. So, and that's kind of how Acme is we don't design and build throwaway machines. Our machines last for decades. So it's kind of funny. And Romi's also a privately held family business, just like Acme. So there's a lot of similarities between the two companies.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, in that decision-making process, were you evaluating other brands?
Yes. Yeah. We were evaluating Japanese, Korean, looking at just the overall value proposition. It just seemed like, we should go with Romi. And, our company has done a lot of business in Brazil since 2007. We've got about 20 customers in Brazil. But in the case of Brazil, we're building everything here and then shipping it to Brazil. I've been down to Brazil many times, and, we have a really good customer base down there. And there were just a lot of things that kind of, it made it like a good decision to, try a Romi, even though I knew very little about Romi until about a couple of years ago.
So, I mean, ultimately, I know it says obviously, they're a, independently owned, a family-owned business, and there's a lot of synergies and connections there. But what would you say ultimately was sort of that driving factor saying, hey, we're going to take a chance?
Yeah. It's to me, it's all about relationships and networking and trust.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just had a real good feeling about just what they were saying, what I was hearing. And obviously I had a lot of confidence in Cassiano. And, the other thing is, what we've learned since we've we bought two Romies, is that their customer support is just phenomenal.
Mm.
And so I'm not sure how big their presence is in the United States, but all I know is that whenever one of my machinists have a question, the response is very fast.
That's fantastic.
And to me, service is pretty important.
Well, that's critical. Obviously, you don't want to have any downtime, and
Right.
and you want to make sure that if you've made a big capital investment like this, that you've got support when
Right.
something comes up.
Yep.
So maybe talk to me. You said, okay, we're going to we're going to roll the dice. We're going to take a chance on Romy. Walk me through what was sort of the installation process, and what did that look like?
Once the equipment arrived at Acme, both machines were installed pretty quickly. As soon as they were installed, we scheduled to have the Romy service people up here to do the commissioning, and part of the commissioning was also training. So we wanted our people to be trained on the newer technology, because this was a pretty big step up to what we were using in the past. So it was important that that our people were trained so they could get the maximum. We could get the maximum benefit from the technology that we were buying from them. Within a week, the equipment was installed, powered up, and then the Romy technicians were here the following week.
That's fantastic, and then you're off and running. That's pretty cool. That's great.
Yeah. Yep.
That is fantastic. So how do you, how do you consider? I mean, obviously, I'm sure you've done this with a lot of other machine tool, products, and you've had other installations. How, how do you sort of define success from an installation, setup?
Well, I mean, I think that when you're up and running that quickly, and your employees are comfortable and they embrace the technology, I mean, I think that's a very positive thing. I mean, because we sell equipment, and one of the most important people in that process is going to be the person running that equipment every day, and they can make you or break you. And so you want to make sure that there's a high level of comfort in the people being able to operate the equipment to get the maximum benefit.
Absolutely. So it sounds like pretty high standard. They met your expectations, or maybe, dare I say, exceeded. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
I would absolutely say that they exceeded, because whenever we would have a question or what have you, it was an immediate response. Mm. And you don't always get that from, machine tool companies today, or just maybe in anything that you buy. But, to me, service is pretty critical.
Yeah. So you said you have two units now. You started with one.
We bought a vertical, and we bought a lathe. And, as our business continues on, I would probably consider another one. It's just, we're a machine tool builder. So, we know how to build machines. We know how to design machines. So, you can tell quality when you see it. It's paying attention to details, and, they definitely pay attention to details on their designs.
That's fantastic. So, what would you tell another company that is saying, they're evaluating, they're saying, what, maybe I don't know so much about the Romy brand, like you were kind of mentioning,
sure.
And they're wondering, should they take that risk? What would you tell them?
Well, a lot of it's going to depend on what the application is, the tolerances that they have to machine to. But from our standpoint, the capability of the Romys are well within what we need for our business. So, to me, it was, I just didn't think it was a big risk to go with Romy. And the other thing is just when you look at the value proposition, I mean, if you look at the exchange rates, I mean, the dollar has been very strong against the Brazilian real for, I think, 7 years now. And so when you're buying in Brazil, you're getting in dollars, you're getting a lot more value.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's just one of many things, but that happens to be, I mean, we're a privately held business, so we've got limited capital. And so when we do invest our capital, we want to make sure we're investing it wisely.
Absolutely. So, from what I hear, if I were to sum up sort of your experience with this and what led you to buy, and what sounds like it's still true, is really the quality of the product, that it's not something that you mentioned that you're going to throw away after 10 years. It's built to last.
Right.
And then the customer support being critical to making sure that you have continued uptime. And then you mentioned the installation process, how it was easy and it was quick, and that transfer of knowledge happened very quickly, so that you guys were able to go up and running and do what you need to do.
Right.
Excellent. Well, Fritz, thank you so much for spending some time with us today at Industrial Sage.
Great, and thanks for having me.
Anytime. All right, well, there you go. That wraps up today's Industrial Sage episode. I'm Danny Gonzalez, and thank you for watching or listening again. Hey, if you are interested, if you've got a challenge and you're saying, hey, I'd like to learn more about this, go take a look at Romy. Go to romyusa.com, and certainly, too, if you'd like, check out Acme Manufacturing at acmemfg.com. Those links will be in the show notes below if you'd like to access that. Thanks, and I'll be back next week with another episode on Industrial Sage.